December the 8th, 1984, a concerned mother in the small town of Leigh took to the streets in search of her teenage daughter, who had failed to return home from a small gathering with friends by the agreed time of 10:30 p.m. The teen was sadly found dead in an alleyway just a few hundred meters from her home, close to midnight. She had been violently assaulted and strangled to death with an item of clothing. A spate of attacks on young women and girls within the same area in the months prior to the murder led investigators, the media, and the local community to question if a serial offender had escalated their behaviour and whether or not they would strike again. Welcome to the Crime Portal. This is the case of Lisa Hession. Located in Greater Manchester, Leigh is a town approximately 12 miles southeast of Wigan, with a population of roughly 50,000 people. Leigh has a rich industrial heritage, having transitioned from an agricultural area noted for dairy farming to a centre for domestic spinning and weaving, leading to a significant silk and cotton industry. The exploitation of underlying coal measures further contributed to its industrial growth. Leigh's industrial past can be seen in the remaining red brick mills, some of which are listed buildings, although it is now mainly a residential town. Shortly before midnight on Saturday, the 8th of December 1984, Leigh resident 43-year-old Ronald Parry and his 13-year-old son, Ron, were out walking the family dog. As they walked down an alleyway behind Rugby Road, they were met with the horrifying sight of a motionless teenage girl that showed clear signs of being violently attacked. The victim lay within a recess which allowed access to a private garage. Mr. Parry knocked on the door of a nearby house and alerted the residents to the situation, who in turn rang the police. 13-year-old Ron dashed to get help from his uncle and aunt, Bill and Yvonne Hayes. Mr. Hayes attempted to revive the victim, wrapping his coat around her to try and keep her warm, but sadly it was no use. The young girl was dead. Ronald Parry would later recount, quote, "I used to be an undertaker and the little girl was freezing cold. I think I knew then that she was gone. She was lying on her back. There was a thin black mark around her neck, and she appeared to have a black eye. Some buttons, which I took to be from her coat, were lying 2 to 3 feet away." Police descended on the scene, led by Detective Superintendent Terry Millard, and a murder investigation was promptly started. The victim was swiftly identified as 14-year-old Lisa Jane Hession. Born on April 12, 1970, Lisa was an only child and lived with her 38-year-old mother, Christine, at a house on Bonnywell Road, only a few hundred meters from the spot where she was found murdered. The 14-year-old was a popular student at Bedford High School in Leigh. She was a keen athlete, representing the school at netball, cross-country running, and gymnastics, which she is said to have excelled at. Lisa was also a member of Leigh Harriers Athletics Club. The happy teen also had an interest in music and was a big fan of David Bowie. Her mother, Christine, helped police establish Lisa's movements on the day she was murdered. The family ate dinner early so that Lisa could attend a gathering with her boyfriend, Craig Newell, whose age is variably given as 15 or 16 at the time. Lisa left the family home shortly before 7 p.m. that evening, with a smile on her face, excited about the night ahead. Although the teenager was normally required to be home no later than 9 p.m, on this occasion she was given permission by her mother to stay out until 10:30. When Lisa failed to return home for her curfew, her mother Christine got dressed and began searching the streets nearby for any sign of her daughter. She briefly returned home, thinking maybe the two had missed each other, but there was no sign of Lisa at the house. Soon after, Christine phoned the police to report her daughter missing. Heartbreakingly, Christine walked past the entrance to the alleyway in which her daughter had been killed several times whilst looking for Lisa that night, She would later tell the media, quote, "If I had looked in, perhaps I could have done something. I don't know. I walked past 3 times and could have helped her." Police attended Christine's home to transport her to the hospital Lisa had been taken to. Christine recalled, quote, "They just said there was a girl who had been assaulted and she was in a bad way. When we got there, they said they had a feeling it was my little girl. They asked if I would identify her. She just looked as if she was asleep." Lisa's boyfriend and 4 others present at the gathering that she attended prior to her murder were all questioned, but offered no significant information other than confirming the teen had started her journey home sometime close to 10:30 p.m. Police worked to establish the route Lisa would have likely taken home, theorizing she left the gathering on Leigh Road, roughly 2 miles from her home, and began by travelling south along St. Helens Road before turning left onto Buck Street. It was at this location a witness would later state they'd spotted Lisa walking. From Buck Street, Lisa would have presumably turned right to head down either Poplar Street or Oak Street and taken a left onto Newlands Road. The entrance to the alley in which she was murdered would have been on Lisa's left as she made her way towards the street on which she lived, Bonnywell Road. 3 days after Lisa was killed, a press conference was held at which further details were given about the attack. Lisa had died as a result of asphyxia caused by her t-shirt being pulled tightly around her neck. DS Terry Millard told reporters, quote, "She had scratches round her neck and throat, and these may have been caused as she tried to pull away the clothing. She also had bruising to her lips. This would indicate she had been roughly handled. I am of the opinion that although she was not raped, it was sexually motivated. Her skirt was lifted waist high." DS Millard also commented that Lisa had put up a serious fight against her attacker. Earrings that Lisa had been wearing on the night of the murder and an umbrella she was known to be carrying were found at different spots within the alleyway, suggesting the attack could have started closer to the road before ending further up the alley. There was another shocking revelation revealed to the public. In the 4 months prior to Lisa's murder, there had been 3 other attacks on young women and girls within a mile of the alley. The first attack took place in August of 1984, as 20-year-old medical records officer Carol Gallagher was returning to her home on Rugby Road, which sits parallel to the alley in which Lisa Hession was found dead. The attack occurred in the early hours of the morning when a man wearing a blue tracksuit and red woolen hat began jogging towards Carol, who was suddenly forced to the ground. In Carol's own words, quote, "He had a baby face, he was clean shaven and about 20. He wasn't ugly, in fact he was quite attractive." Carol asked her attacker what he was doing, and oddly he responded by telling his victim that he could not get a girlfriend. Quote, "I said to him, 'You won't get a girlfriend if you carry on doing things like this.' Then I got up and started to talk with him. He did seem to calm down, and I thought at the time he seemed genuinely sorry. After I kept him chatting for about 5 or 10 minutes, he said he was sorry for what he had done. He didn't hit me or molest me, and he said it was the first time he had grabbed hold of a woman like that." The following month, in the early hours of Sunday the 2nd of September on Central Avenue, a man wearing grey trousers and a white striped shirt exposed himself to a 17-year-old girl before seizing her from behind. According to the victim, the attacker stated, quote, "If you scream, I will break your neck." The girl was struck and pushed up against a wall, but bravely kneed her attacker in the groin and managed to run away. The final attack took place at around 6 p.m, the day before Lisa was murdered. A 16-year-old girl was walking along Mather Lane, 1 mile east of the murder scene, when a man exposed himself and grabbed her, exclaiming, "If you make any noise, I'll kill you." The attacker attempted to push his victim to the ground, but the teenager managed to flee. In all 3 attacks, the culprit was said to have a local accent. DS Millard told the media, Quote, "There is a distinct possibility that these 3 attacks involved the same person. Although very little information was revealed, it was also claimed by newspapers that a man who was seen watching Lisa on 2 consecutive days the week prior to her death, even following her home, was traced by police and eliminated from the inquiry. It is also known that the only man ever arrested in relation to the murder was released without charge only a few days after the crime took place. It remains unclear whether the man who followed Lisa home and the man who was arrested were the same person." The week following Lisa's murder, it was announced that the investigation team of 60 officers would be utilizing what was, at the time, deemed to be cutting-edge digital technology to assist in hunting for the killer. The Major Incident Room Index and Action Management System, known as MIRIAM, was born out of the murder investigation which sought to snare the Yorkshire Ripper, who was of course identified as Peter Sutcliffe and convicted of murdering 13 women and attempting to murder several others between 1975 and 1980. The Yorkshire Ripper inquiry was criticised for the way in which information was stored. Over 268,000 documents were processed manually, leading to critical delays and oversights. Information was stored on paper index cards and in physical files, making cross-referencing slow and inefficient. To address this, MIRIAM was introduced as a computerized case management system. Following the Yorkshire Ripper case, UK policing recognised the need for a national, standardised system for managing major investigations. MIRIAM influenced the development of the Home Office Large Major Inquiry System, or HOMES, the first national computer system for major crime investigations, rolled out in 1985. HOMES 2, an improved version, was introduced in the 1990s and is still in use at the time of recording in 2025. 1 week following the murder, on Saturday, December the 15th of 1984, a reconstruction of Lisa's last known movements was staged to assist in appealing for information from the public. 26-year-old Detective Constable Rita Kraft was chosen to play the part of the murdered teenager. Despite the 12-year age gap between the two, DC Kraft was of a similar height as Lisa, standing at around 5 feet 4 inches tall, with a similar build and hairstyle. DC Kraft was dressed in clothes matching those that Lisa wore on her journey home a week prior: white boots, a white skirt, white t-shirt, red cardigan, and black reefer jacket. Despite the community of Leigh rallying behind the efforts of the ongoing police investigation, no leads of major significance were reported for the remainder of 1984, as Lisa Hession tragically prepared for the first Christmas since her daughter's brutal murder. In January 1985, the police investigation once again turned its attention to identifying the man responsible for the 1984 attacks on women in Leigh, aiming to ascertain if they were in fact committed by the same person, and if that person was also Lisa Hession's killer. An e-fit of the suspect was created, following which DS Terry Millard told the media, quote, "2 females separately gave us the descriptions of this man and built up separate photo kits. A 3rd female also gave us a description. In all 3, there are great similarities, and in 2 cases, the females said he was baby-faced. I do not say this man has any connection with the murder, but I still want to talk to him." Within days, the police had received a number of calls, but no breakthroughs were reported. By this time, police had visited over 1,300 homes, interviewed over 5,000 people, sent over 180 items for forensic examination, received over 1,000 calls from the public, and fed just shy of 5,000 items of information into the MIRIAM system. Yet, sadly, police were still no closer to identifying the man responsible for Lisa's murder. A couple more months went by until in April 1985 an inquest was carried out. Unsurprisingly, Manchester North coroner David Blakey reached a verdict of unlawful killing. D.S. Millard told newspapers, quote, "Whether she was killed deliberately or whether too much force was used by an attacker whose intention was to indecently assault or rape her is not known." The next month, in May 1985, another woman was attacked in Buck Street, just a few hundred yards from the alleyway. On this occasion, the victim was grabbed by a man and flung against a wall. While the man attempted to remove his victim's clothing, he was spooked by the headlights of a vehicle and ran off. The attacker was never identified. With a lack of leads to follow, media coverage began to decline rapidly. It was briefly reported in May of 1987 that a 32-year-old man from Merseyside, who was being held at Risley Remand Centre accused of murdering an 84-year-old woman, was questioned multiple times in relation to the murder of Lisa. This presumably went nowhere, as nothing else of significance was reported for nearly 20 years. In late 2004, Greater Manchester Police established their cold case review team. One of the murders on their radar was that of Lisa Hession. The team was headed by DI Jeff Arnold, who worked as part of the original murder investigation in 1984. The following year, in February 2005, the BBC's Crime Watch programme broadcast live from Manchester for the first time, and investigators used this as an opportunity to put Lisa's murder on the national stage. During the episode, D.I. Arnold visited the alley in which Lisa was found, recapping the facts from the day of the murder. Police footage captured following the murder was also shown. Christine Hession was interviewed for the episode and stated, quote, "It's always there at the back of your mind, knowing that nobody has ever paid for what's happened to your child. They may be married or have children of their own, living a good life, I don't know, but they've not paid for what they've done, have they? And if no one comes forward, they never will." Following a number of calls from the public after the programme's airing, it was revealed that police were said to have followed up on 2 undisclosed leads. The BBC reported that some of the calls received by police came from women concerned about the behaviour of their husbands or boyfriends when Lisa was murdered. Despite the cold case team's efforts, the investigation faded back into media obscurity until in 2011, when it was announced that DNA had been retrieved from the murder scene. The profile did not match anyone on the national database, and so Greater Manchester Police carried out a mass swabbing of men in Leigh and nearby Wigan. Sadly, this also failed to identify the killer. On the 30th anniversary of Lisa's murder in 2014, Martin Bottomley, head of the Greater Manchester Police Cold Case Review Unit, reassured the public that he and his team were still committed to finding the killer. Quote, "We never put cold cases down and never forget about them. We always conduct a fresh review of them every 2 years and will follow up on any call that is made to us." Lisa's mother told the media, quote, "It's 30 years now, but it does not seem like 5 minutes to me. I don't know where all this time has gone. It's more bearable now and life does go on and I just have to get on with it." Tragically, Christine Hession passed away in 2016 at the age of 69, following a battle with cancer. The following year, Greater Manchester Police demonstrated their commitment to finding Lisa's killer with a £50,000 reward put on offer for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible. Appeals have continued in recent years, with the Manchester Evening News working diligently to ensure that Lisa's murder remains in the public eye, spearheaded by Chief Reporter Neil Keeling. In addition to writing a number of articles on the case, Neil has appeared on podcasts, online videos, and television to discuss it. It's a case that Neil has never been able to forget. At the time Lisa was killed, he was a young reporter with the Bolton Evening News, and the murder was the first he'd ever covered. In a video posted to the Manchester Evening News YouTube channel in 2022, Neil reflected on being tasked with trying to interview Lisa's grieving mother just 3 days after losing her daughter. Quote, "In 1984, journalistic ethics were not what they are now. 3 times I was sent to knock on Lisa's mum's door. Each time she was kind and civil to a young reporter. She told me, 'Son, I know why you're here and I understand it, but we're not ready to talk at the moment.'" Neil also recounted a quote from Lisa Hession when she had built up the strength to address reporters. Quote, "There was one quote I will never forget. She said, 'I stood on the pavement waiting for Lisa's white boots to come down the road, but they never did.'" December 2024 marked the 40-year anniversary of Lisa Hession's murder and saw a flurry of further appeals for information. That month, the community of Leigh gathered to mark the occasion by staging a candlelit vigil. Over 100 people turned out to walk the route which Lisa would have taken on the night of her death, whilst playing some of the fallen teen's favourite songs, including Hold Me Now by the Thompson Twins, You Really Got Me by the Kinks, and China Girl by David Bowie. Flowers were left in Lisa's memory at both the family home she shared with her mother Christine and the entrance to the alley in which her last moments alive took place. Just a few months after the vigil was held in March 2025, the case was featured on BBC's Crime Watch Live. Neil Keeling spoke about his time covering the case. Martin Bottomley of Greater Manchester Police was also interviewed and urged the public to come forward if they had information, reiterating the fact that police were in possession of DNA that could identify the killer. Back in January of 2018, a Facebook group was set up named Justice for Lisa Hession. It serves to share updates in the case and allow those who knew Lisa to post pictures and memories. The group was set up by Andrea Aldred, one of Lisa's friends, and Ryan Daly, a local man who took an interest in the case in 2016. After reaching out to Ryan, he kindly agreed to speak with me about his motivation for getting involved with setting the group up and the case in general. Hey Ryan.
Hiya, you okay?
So you weren't born at the time Lisa was killed. How did you originally become involved in helping to publicise the case, and what were your motivations for getting involved?
It's always been a case, like, if you're from Leigh, and I am from Leigh, like, and all my family are, it's like a big thing in Leigh that we want to see closure about. And it's like a black cloud over this town. We just won't know who it is. My auntie lived at 23 Rugby Road. August 84, she'd moved in. And the morning after Lisa was murdered, my auntie got up in the morning and looked out at the front living room window, and she'd actually saw loads of cars. She got up phone to like a neighbour and she said, "What's going on down the street?" And my auntie had actually been told there'd been a murder down back. So my auntie had actually gone out of the back gate to see what was going on, and a policewoman met her at the back gate and said, "You need to go in." And my auntie said, "Well, I've heard there's a murder. What's going on?" And she said, "I can't tell you anything other than something very serious happened here last night." And my auntie was then told to go back into her house. When they reopened it in 2004, it was on Crime Watch, and a lot of people who I grew up with at school and stuff wasn't shocked when I started raising awareness about it, because like whenever it was brought up about Lisa's case, I'd always like get on my soapbox about it, how wrong it was, no one's ever been caught, and how she was a kid who'd been murdered, and my mum was obviously still alive at this stage and never had justice. In May 2016, my friend had got an house on the top of the Rugby Road estate, and we were driving down Bonywell Road, and I remember there was a kids' party on Bonywell Road next to Lisa's mum's house, and I said, innocently, "I bet that woman who lives there is not happy with all them screaming kids." And she went, "Who?" I said, "Christine, Lisa Hession's mum." She went, "She's died." So I said, "She can't have it. Would have been in paper." And my friend had informed me Christine had died a couple of months before. I decided, like, the day after, I was going to email all papers and let them know, because I thought, Lisa Hession's mum's died. Does that mean the person who's done it's never going to get caught if they don't, like, basically, like, announce, like, a mum's died? Will someone not come forward, like, and basically said they know something? I don't know, but I emailed all, like, local papers and national papers and told them Christine Hession had died and stuff. And then I got speaking to Neil Keeling. So Neil emailed me back and said, thanks for this. We're going to do some stories on unsolved murders. Lisa's going to be one of them. So that was in, like, the summertime of 2016. And then I remember thinking, I'm going to basically put like some posts online. So what I did, we used to have a site called Leigh forums, and I anonymously put them online. Reason I was secretive, because at the time I worked in a medium security unit and they were very strict on social media. And a local bloke shared these posts, like, basically saying Lisa's mum's passed away, like, it's still unsolved. So they started resurfacing on Facebook. Then a year after, I put the post on again on Leigh forums, and Andrea reshared it, and then I inboxed Andrea and said, listen, I've I knew Andrea really well, like, I'd known her, like, for about 10 years at that stage, and she happened to be a childhood friend of Lisa's. So Andrea went to primary school and high school with Lisa. I got talking to Andrea and said, I put these posts on and stuff, and then Andrea just said, shall we just get a group going? So we got a group going. We started working with each other in November 2017, then we got a group going not long after, and then we've worked with each other ever since.
I've read some of your comments in the Facebook group, and you don't seem to think the other attacks in 1984 and 85 were connected to the murder. What brought you to that conclusion?
Well, I am in touch with a few of Lisa's school friends, one of them being Andrea, and two of them still live on that estate, and all three of them women who I speak to, and other women I've spoken to, don't think, they think that was a massive red herring, the ether, and I agree. I have in past had women who was attacked. Some have given different descriptions to what that ether looks like I found, and I just don't think Lisa's killer is that attacker. I really don't. I personally think Lisa's killer was somebody she knew, somebody she would have trusted for walk down them backs with, and I think it could be a neighbour what lived there, or somebody who had links to that estate. For somebody basically murder a young girl down a back alley and walk the streets or whatever for go home, they must have lived close by or must have been seen. I personally think that person has gone and told you either that night or within a few years after or whatever. I don't know, maybe a family member or the wife or whatever. I think they've been shielded from the very early days. Leigh's a small town. You can walk past somebody in the street in Leigh and you can think, I know them. If that man who's on the ether was a local man with a Leigh accent, surely by now one of them women would have noticed who he is. I really do think Lisa walked in and back to someone she trusted, and I do think it was someone who lived on that estate. I really do. Or who had family on that estate. Or I think there's something about that estate what links back to her killer, and I do think that. Or if not, that estate very, very nearby. I think they knew a movement of where she was going that night. I think it's been someone who's fancied her and tried the luck, and unfortunately she's been murdered.
Do you think this case gets solved?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I really do. And I think with police having partial DNA, I do think it will one day will know. I really do. I think one day we'll know who it is.
Opinions remain divided as to whether or not Lisa's murder was committed by the same individual responsible for the other attacks on women and girls in 1984 and 85. Martin Bottomley publicly stated in 2025, quote, "We can't link Lisa's murder to the other attacks definitively because we have no forensic evidence, but the circumstances of the various attacks, or near misses, tend to suggest there is a sexual predator out there at the time who has escalated his behaviour, resulting in Lisa's death." Not all members of the Justice for Lisa Hession Facebook group agree with this perspective, with many thinking the attacks were carried out by a different person to the one who committed the murder. One thing that appears to be unanimously agreed on, however, is that Lisa's killer was a local man, with many stating their belief that the murderer could have been infatuated with the teenager. As we heard from Ryan Daly, He believes the culprit was from the local area. Neil Keeling stated in 2022, quote, "I believe that the person who killed her probably knew her, was obsessed with her, and came not just from Leigh, but from the estate, or near the estate where she lived." Lisa's friend, Andrea Aldred, previously told the Manchester Evening News, quote, "I think Lisa's killer was infatuated with her. She was a very liked girl. Where she lived is where he is from. She had rejected him in some kind of way, as a friend or coming on too strong, and that led him into wanting to be with her more and more in his head, to eventually doing what he did on that night. There were two parties that night. There was one at Leigh Harrier's, for whom Lisa was a runner, and then there was the party that Lisa went to. Everyone knew that Lisa was not going to the Harriers' celebration party, but to the other one. That would have given the killer the place to know where Lisa was." Martin Bottomley has shared similar views in recent years, quote, "My gut instinct is that the person who murdered Lisa must have been local, must have known the area, and must have known this back entry ginnel that afforded some degree of seclusion for him to drag Lisa down and murder her. The fact that police are in possession of the killer's DNA means there is a very real chance this case could be solved. All investigators need is a name. If you have any information that could potentially help to get justice for Lisa Hession and bring some closure to the community of Leigh, please contact the Greater Manchester Police Cold Case Unit on 0161 856 5978. The Crime Portal is a channel dedicated to exploring lesser-known murder and missing persons cases. For more information on this case, or to submit a suggestion for future videos, please visit the Crime Portal website. And, as always, thank you for watching.